Politico informed us that GLSDB should have already arrived in Ukraine, and maybe in the following days it will strike some Russian depot or command post. It was announced more than a year ago that we would receive this munition, and this video is a refresher for what this wonderful ground-launched small-diameter bomb is and how it came about. But to begin, let's talk about the usual free-fall dumb bombs and their accuracy. Here's the picture. The idea is clear. At the moment when the bomb separates from the airplane, it is at certain altitude, the same as the airplane, and it moves with precisely the same speed that the airplane had. After that, it starts to decelerate due to air resistance and starts to lose altitude due to Earth's gravity, and follows somewhat complex trajectory until it falls to the ground. Exactly where it will fall, it depends on, let's start counting on our fingers, on the release altitude, on the speed, on the moment of detachment, on the direction, it's the velocity vector, and the airplane doesn't necessarily fly straight. Here on picture it is strictly horizontal to the ground, but it can dive, it can climb, and of course it also depends on the aerodynamic characteristic of the bomb itself, and through calculation one can only estimate something more or less roughly, and practically all this is done, of course, initially through wind tunnel tests of the bomb, and then through multiple drops compiling corresponding ballistic tables. As a result, if we calculate everything correctly and detach the bomb precisely at the right moment and at the right altitude and at the right speed in windless weather, we may make an error of plus minus few hundred meters. If we add to this calculation the wind, the error here can become unpredictably large, because the time it takes for the bomb to fall from the airplane to the ground is quite significant. In the Second World War, from an altitude of around 8 kilometers, a bomb would fall for 30-40 seconds, and 30-40 seconds it's almost a minute, it's infinitely long, and it is subject to the influence of the wind. Yes, of course, we can make some corrections for the wind if we exactly know its speed and direction, but the wind can change with altitude, it can change its direction, there can be gusts of wind, and as a result, the bomb falls somewhere there, somewhere in that direction. And in the best case scenario, towards the end of the Second World War, with the advent of special calculators, they were spinning some mysterious gears, whereas dials and hands, scales, and it was possible with all this machinery to achieve accuracy in bombing from high altitudes, substantial for that era, around from the altitudes of around 6, 8, 10 kilometers. It was possible to hit a target within a circle of 250 meters. And if we assume that we have a powerful bomb capable of causing damage within a radius of 50 meters all around it, so take a look at this picture. This is to scale, it is in proportion. Here we have a circle of 250 meters in diameter, And here is the blast zone of 50 meters in diameter. And here is the house that for some reason we've deemed necessary to destroy. So basic arithmetic shows that to completely cover this area, we would need to drop 25 such bombs. And this is more than one airplane of that era can carry or could carry. So to destroy a specific house, we would need to send 9 bombers, or simply send a lot of planes that can shower the area with a rain of bombs, attempting to solve accuracy issue with what is known as carpet bombing, covering areas rather than striking precisely. So later on, new era arrived, rangefinders and radar systems emerged capable of accurately determining the distance to the target. Electronic computers also made their appearance, but this helped, but it helped quite slightly to improve precision. In any case, bombing from high altitudes was simply scattering bombs to the wind, just dropping them somewhere. And to achieve any semblance of accuracy, as it was in case of Israel's wars, when they were addressing the issue of destroying Egyptian airfields, they had to drop bombs from extremely low altitudes during a shallow dive, practically being on top of a target and consequently exposing themselves to all types of anti-aircraft fire, including anti-aircraft artillery and missiles. Thus, the bomber as a class, the tactical bomber, as a class of military machines, they became extinct like dinosaurs. These first jet bombers, what you see now, such as French Voiture or the Soviet Il-28, they were the first and they became the last. The initial tactical jet bombers ended up being the final one. It was replaced by a fighter bomber, essentially a heavy fighter capable of carrying something for ground attacks. This was done to simultaneously address the interconnected problem of low accuracy of free-falling bombs and the extreme vulnerability of the attacked aircraft when attempting to bomb from close range. So they needed to transition from bomber to a missile carrier. That's what it was called. Instead of free-falling bomb, the fighter bomber was armed with a missile capable of flying far. And this allowed the attacking aircraft to move out of the range of at least anti-aircraft artillery and short-range anti-aircraft missiles, and thus to address the issue of vulnerability. Not immediately. Decades of development has passed, and there have been many of these air-to-ground missiles, and this could be a separate, endless story. But just for the sake of this video, I just want to show you 3 examples. Why specifically these 3 examples? Because here they have all different engines. So this one is very widely known, famous American Maverick. This is already quite late development. It is from the 80s. It is just typically American, straightforward, solid fuel rocket engine, sturdy, accurate, and reliable. And this is Soviet Ha-59, which is practically in service now. Here, this one, red one. And these have a full-fledged aviation turbojet engine. Here at the bottom, this cylindrical shape outlined with a yellow oval. This is so. Actually, this missile is just unmanned jet airplane, and here is a highly advanced Soviet and now Russian anti-ship missile Ha-31. This outlined there are 4 air intakes, 2 from this side and symmetrically 2 from the other side. These are air intakes for the combined ramjet rocket engine, and initially the solid fuel propellant provides the initial acceleration, and afterwards these black covers are ejected, and the air intakes, they start acting as air intakes. Consequently, compressed air from the oncoming flow enters the combustion chamber of the air-breathing ramjet engine, and so you can see there were various solutions, various configurations, variants, many options were developed, and all these combinations, these different options, they work. Now, so we have the missile that can fly quite far, but the second problem is that it has to be guided somehow to the target. So it all started with simple beam riding guidance schemes, and perhaps using radar or later laser beam. In certain sense, this is straightforward and convenient, as it is. It eliminates the need for complex, bulky onboard electronics on the missile. Here's a diagram. It is ground to air targeting, but using the same logic, if you from the air attempt to hit a target on the ground, it is essentially the same principle. However, the farther the missile travels, the greater the distance from the launch point and to the target, the larger the deviation becomes. If at a short distance you see the error here is not big, then as distance increases, the error grows, and eventually the anti-aircraft missile passes by the aircraft at a greater distance than the non-contact fuse activates. And conversely, if we try to hit a ground target from an aircraft, we simply miss target by hundreds of meters or tens of meters, and the greater the distance, the larger this error becomes. So people transitioned to self-guidance. Self-guidance means that the missile is equipped with a brain or complex electronics and some kind of sensor. This sensor could be a thermal sensor, an infrared guidance system that tracks the target's heat emissions. It could also be a laser sensor that homes in on laser reflections. For instance, when a laser is pointed at a target, perhaps from a concealed position in the bushes, there could be a spotter with a laser illuminator highlighting the target. However, the most common type is radar guidance. In this case, the radar illuminates the target, and the self-guided head equipped with a radar sensor homes on the reflected radar signals from the target. But it could also be an active radar head which both emits and receives the reflected signals from the target. This is a more complex and it is more expensive. It requires significant efforts in miniaturization and developed electronics. However, this fundamentally changes what? The closer the missile approaches the target, the more accurate the determination of target position becomes, and the more precise the guidance. In other words, it becomes absolutely irrelevant how far the target um, so it becomes absolutely irrelevant how far the target is from us. This does not affect accuracy at all. Accuracy is solely determined by what happens in the last seconds of flight and the last kilometers and hundreds of meters approaching the target. This means that we can launch these missiles from afar and from high altitude, and it will not compromise the accuracy of our strike. However, if we can launch a missile from high altitude, then why do we need a missile at all? A conventional bomb drop from high altitude would work just fine. We wouldn't need an engine. An engine would mean additional cost, extra weight, increased dimensions, added risk of explosion, and additional storage and maintenance requirements. Why do we need all that if we can simply drop a bomb from high altitude, attach some wings to it, and let it glide like a glider, a motorless aircraft, and reach its target? So, how far will it fly? Can it cover a significant distance? The precise answer to this question requires a very serious and extensive calculation. However, a rough estimate that gives a general sense of the scale of what we are discussing, it is remarkably straightforward. There is a parameter, so look at the screen. It is called air dynamic quality, and it is denoted by the letter K. Quality is the ratio of lift to air dynamic drag. The higher the lift, the lower the drag, and accordingly the better it is. And it shows how far a glider can travel when launched at a height of h. This is not an exact formula. It is imprecise because firstly the drag coefficient, it depends on the angle of attack. This Cx drag coefficient, and also at air density, and this will vary in reality. Moreover, we've completely forgotten the initial speed. If it was lower, it will accelerate initially until it reaches the flight mode with optimal speed and maximum quality at a certain angle of attack. And so, it is not an exact formula, but the order of magnitudes is understood just to have a rough picture. So, if an aircraft, a glider, has an aerodynamic quality of 10, it means that upon detachment at an altitude of 10 kilometers, it will cover a distance of 100 kilometers. However, this is at this slant, slant range denoted as L here. The horizontal, this one, or so to speak, the geographical range will be less. But it's not a crucial difference. So, if we have a quality, this K of at least 10 and an altitude of 10 kilometers, which is perfectly normal, this is piece of cake for modern combat aircraft, the bomb released at this altitude will travel on this L range about 100 kilometers. Now, of course, you might wonder, what does a quality of 10 mean? Is it a lot? Is it a little? What exactly? Well, let's take a look. Let's go to the very beginning, the de Havilland fighter, the fighter from the early stage of World War I. This de Havilland fighter DH-2, it has an aerodynamic quality of 7. So this is right here is 7. And this is right here is 37. It is 37. The Global Flyer by Virgin. It is a phenomenal achievement of human ingenuity. It is equipped with a jet engine. With this marvel, they circumnavigated the globe, completing a non-stop, non-refueling journey. This incredible feat of human ingenuity, it has a aerodynamic quality of 37. And everything else is in this range. And by the way, a Sparrow, not the Sparrow missile, but a live Sparrow, the bird, it has a dynamic quality of 4. Well, I have no idea how they calculated that. And here is the Soviet answer to the space shuttle. It is called Buran. It was called Buran. Wings are not that large and not that visible, so it has a maximum quality of around 5.2. Of course, not during hypersonic flight, but rather when it is making its approach for landing and flying at optimal speeds in the dense layers of the atmosphere. So this is approximately 5.2. Consequently, it is not at all difficult to create a bomb that would have at least 2, 3, 4 units of aerodynamic quality. And such a bomb would need very small wings. And imagine, from an altitude of 10 kilometers, such a device could cover 20-30 kilometers, which is tactically quite acceptable, because at 20-30 kilometers it can reliably exit the engagement zone of anti-aircraft artillery, the engagement zone of man-portable anti-aircraft missile systems, and mostly from medium-range anti-aircraft missile systems as well. So, therefore, the idea is clear and understandable, simple, to put wings on the bomb. And, of course, everything that is new and novel is something that Germans did during World War II. Here it is before you, the grandfather of all gliding bombs. It was aptly named Fritz X. This device weighed considerable 1400 kilograms. Out of these 1400, only 300 kilograms were explosives. The concept was that it had a front section made of casting or something very rigid and strong. This thing in free fall was supposed to penetrate the armored deck of a battleship. It was controlled either by radio or even by wires. In the tail section, there was a spool with a wire, and this contraption could fly up to 5 kilometers. And with this contraption, the Germans sank a battleship. This Italian battleship Roma, which means Rome, the city of Rome. Yes, they sank the Italian battleship with this contraption. And why sink the Italian ship? Well, in 1943 they ceased to be alive. In the summer of 1943, the Supreme Fascist Council gathered. That's what it was called, the Supreme Fascist Council. It was like a central committee for the Communist Party of Soviet Union. Everyone gathered, removed Mussolini from power and switched sides to the Allies, and after that the Germans urgently needed to sink the Italian fleet. So here it was this beautiful thing, a gliding bomb, and later all this was forgotten and decades passed. And then in 70s and 80s they decided to return to this long forgotten idea and attach wings to the bomb. And fortunately there were a lot of these bombs. Over the decades of the Cold War, these free-falling bombs were produced in incredibly large quantities because there was no precision. And precision had to be compensated for by quantity. Therefore, endless warehouses were stocked with bombs. Now, please take a look at another picture that explains and answers the question you probably asked. How does it work at all? What wings should we attach to the bomb for it to start flying? In other words, can it fly with small wings? Well, let's consider the bomb as a cylinder. Plus or minus for simplicity. Even a cylinder, even a smooth cylinder without any wings, if it is at some angle that is called the angle of attack to the oncoming airflow, it creates a zone of increased pressure below. But since the cylinder is smooth and slippery, naturally the airflow from the zone of increased pressure will immediately flow around the cylinder, and the pressure from above and below will equalize. And both processes occur simultaneously: pressure build-up and the pressure equalization. If a zone of increased pressure is maintained, it will only be at the very small area of this cylinder. Nevertheless, even a cylinder, imagine, creates some lift, has a certain angle of attack, some aerodynamic quality, like 0.2, 0.5, for example. Now, it is enough to add tiny wings to the cylinder. Pay attention. These wings are approximately the same length as the radius of the cylinder. And what happens is called in the aerodynamics is turning on. Turning on in the creation of the lift of the fuselage. So the whole fuselage is engaged into the creation of lift. Even the presence of these small wings, as you can see in the picture, prevents the airflow from flowing from the zone of increased pressure under the cylinder to the zones of reduced pressure above the cylinder. Even small wings force the entire cylinder, the entire bomb body, to contribute to the creation of lift, and they themselves add something extra. So instead of this small area, now this area is engaged in the creation of the lift instead of this small area. So now we have a much bigger area. And this area of which lift is created, as you can see, it increases sharply, abruptly, and therefore there is no need to add much. Now, let's stop with the talks, theory, and go back to practice. Let's get down to business. Americans have come up first with the GBU-10. So it is a picture, it is 3D graphics, but very high quality graphics, because the bomb is rusty. That's important. This image conveys the most crucial idea. It means that somebody went to warehouse where there are endless stacks of free-falling bombs. These bombs are practically worthless with a cost close to zero or even negative, because over time chemical reaction occur and they need to be disposed of, deactivated, and this, as you know, costs money. So we pull out this rusty bomb and attach wings here from behind. This aerodynamic scheme, it is called duck, with wings at the back and the stabilizer on the front. So on the front we also attach a stabilizer with which can swivel on this axis here. And up front there is something swinging on gimbal. The Americans equip it with a laser guided head. On the ground there is a spotter who eliminates the target with a laser. This contraption rotates on the gimbal, so the head tracks the laser spot, and the control system calculates the angle of rotation at the head spinning relative to this axis, so at which angle it spins relative to this longitudinal axis, and then the control surfaces control, the direction of the flight according to the reading from this gimbal. So this whole thing means that it is gliding and it is move to the target in a controlled manner. It is not a free fall down bomb anymore. The next step was GBU-12. There you can see, you can already see some resembling what we call wings. It has 4 proper wings at the back, and up front there is practically no change. And here is the same thing, and separately on top here it is the front part, this one that attaches to the front, and you can see here, this is the brother axles to make clear that there is a fully rotating stabilizer. And this one, it was actively used in 1991 during the Desert Storm war against Iraq. Initially, it started as a makeshift solution to utilize the rusty bombs lying around, and surprisingly it turned out to be highly effective, cost-efficient and reliable. And this became the most widespread aerial devices, precision weapons used during the Desert Storm. So, in short, all of this was well received. It demonstrated its effectiveness, and consequently, at the beginning of 21st century, in 2001, a competition was announced by the United States Air Force. 2 companies participated, Boeing and Lockheed Martin. Boeing emerged as the winner, and the next generation glide bomb was introduced. So, now let's get down to business. The Americans have come up first with the GBU-10. It is in a picture, it is 3D render, but very high quality render, because the bomb is rusty. And that's important because this image conveys the most crucial idea. Somebody went to a warehouse where there are endless stacks of free-falling bombs. These bombs are practically worthless, with cost close to zero or even negative. Over time, some chemical degradation occurs, and these bombs, they need to be disposed of, they need to be deactivated. This also costs money. So, somebody pulled out this rusty bomb and attached wings to it at the back. This is an aerodynamic scheme called duck. with wings at the back and the stabilizer in the front. Okay, wait a second. And the stabilizer on the front. And up front, there is something swinging on a gimbal. The Americans equipped it with a laser-guided head. On the ground, there is a spotter who eliminates the target with a laser, and this laser sensor rotates in the gimbal so the head tracks the laser spot. And then control surfaces are also operational. These are control surfaces. If you look closely, you can see you can see that the rudders, they are adjustable. There is an axis of rotation, and they steer the bomb into the direction where the laser sensor is looking. Okay, the next step was GBU 12. Here you can already see something resembling what we call wings. It has 4 proper wings at the back, and up front there is practically no change. Here is the same thing, and separately on top lies the front panel, front part that gets bolted into the bomb, and this rudder axis. They are marked to make it clear that there is a fully rotating stabilizer. They were actively used in 1991 during the Desert Storm war against Iraq. Initially, it started as a makeshift solution to utilize the rusty bomb slide around, but surprisingly, it turned out to be highly effective, cost-efficient, and reliable. This became the most widespread aerial devices, precision weapons used during the war in Iraq in 1991. In short, all of this was well received. It demonstrated its effectiveness, and consequently, at the beginning of the 21st century, in 2001, a competition was announced by the United States Air Force. 2 companies participated, Boeing and Lockheed Martin. And Boeing emerged as a winner, and the next generation glide bomb was introduced. So here it is before you. Here you can see the fully fledged wings, not some scraps of metal stuck together or cut out with scissors. These are fully functional wings. This time, following the conventional classic aircraft scheme, wings are at the front and stabilizer at the back. Also serving as an all-round stabilizer, performs the function of the control surfaces, so it is steering this bomb. This is no longer an old rusty bomb. This is all made, so to speak, from scratch. And before launch, these wings are folded, and then in flight after detachment they unfold, and this thing flies. Overall, it's not a big, it's quite small thing, and these 3 specially trained young individuals will now suspend all 4 of them under the standard beam holder indicated here by the arrow. And here they are already suspended under this beam holder, and this shiny white aluminium frame is just purely transport frame for transporting purposes. And then it was brought to the aircraft and suspended under the aircraft, and so 4 bombs can be hung on one beam holder. This was one of the main requirements of the entire program, to fit on board of the aircraft a lot of guided bombs. That's why they got the name small diameter bomb, because they were small diameter and can be fitted 4 at a time. And on one holder there are 4 of them, and this holder is on the aircraft, you can see here. And there are various types of aircraft. Here you can see the F-15E with 20 bombs, 5 holders, 4 bombs on each, so 20. And here you can see A-10 with 16 bombs, but there are some, spare attachment points, so it can take more. And also here you can see Tornado with 8 bombs. 8 bombs, but there are also other attachment points, and these weapons can be changed, for example, for more of such bombs if there is such a need. So one tactical and not so particularly fast attacker or heavy fighter can take a whole bunch of such bombs. And this bomb was designated as a GBU-39. It weighed 130 kilograms and had a diameter of just 19 centimeters. So it's indeed a small diameter bomb. It has a warhead. There are different types of warhead. You can see the initial one was 93 kilograms, and it could penetrate about 90 centimeters of reinforced concrete. So such a wonderful thing was made, and judging by the fact that if detached at an altitude of 10 kilometers, it could travel 110 kilometers. Its aerodynamic quality was probably around 10 or maybe even higher. So such a wonderful thing. But it must be said, not everything was good with this glide bomb. It was even worse with this dear lady, Darlene Droon. I actually don't know how her family name is pronounced, so I'm apologizing. So, lovely lady. She worked as the Assistant Secretary of the United States Air Force for acquisitions. And generally speaking, it can be said that she did anything terribly wrong, but she arranged for her daughter to work at Boeing, and then she arranged for her daughter's boyfriend to work at Boeing as well. And after finishing her work as Assistant Secretary, she also ended up getting a job at Boeing. And then there was a trial, and she was sentenced in October of 2004. Well, there was scandal, and not only related to the glide bomb. Mostly it was scandal about her other episodes of favoring Boeing above other companies. And she was lobbying for Boeing for years. So, this lovely lady, what did she do? She took an eraser, not literally, of course, but she essentially erased and modified from the already formulated and approved technical requirements regarding requirements for the glide bomb, the requirements regarding the ability to hit moving targets. As a result, so there were two of them, Boeing and Lockheed Martin. Lockheed Martin was making a proper, fully equipped thing, a full-fledged self-guided head, either optical or thermal, which was supposed to ensure the ability to hit moving targets. Boeing didn't have that. Not that they were not capable of making it, but at that time, within those deadlines of competition, they only had a simple guidance system ready, an inertial system during the main flight segment. That is flight according to the program, and then just GPS, just trajectory correction via satellite. Guiding via GPS is very popular with the public, but engineers don't like it, because you understand, if you are fighting some jihadists, then of course GPS guidance is fine. But if you are talking about developing weapons for a war with a high-tech, sophisticated opponent, then all these GPS signals will be jammed at best. And at worst, they'll just knock out satellites with anti-satellite weapons. So it's not a very serious solution. But besides that, it is understood that GPS can know where car or tank and so on are moving. So a guidance system based on GPS can hit only stationary objects with known coordinates. So, in order for Boeing to win this competition, she, figuratively speaking, erased and changed the rules of game during the competition, for which she received her 9 months in prison and 150 hours of community service. But the most interesting part comes next. What's next? Well, then Boeing already got the contract. They've already made the GBU-39, which I showed you and talked about. They made around 3,000 of them. It was accepted into service in 2006. The lady was sentenced in 2004. Nonetheless, it was accepted into service in 2006, and they made 3,000 units, at least 3,000 units. But despite all this scandal, the need for high precision weapons capable of hitting moving targets did not evaporate. As a result, while Boeing and Lockheed Martin were trying to deceive each other and American government, Raytheon, I hope I pronounce this name correctly, Raytheon slipped into this gap. Raytheon is primarily a missile corporation. It's not their business to deal with aircraft, because this actually glider aircraft. However, Raytheon managed to get in with its winged glide bomb. And for the sake of complete mockery, Messerschmitt, another aviation company, the competitor of Boeing and Lockheed Martin, was making the wings for it. Messerschmitt, not quite the same one, but still, it is a part of a large European consortium, but, also interesting. So, these guys from Raytheon in 2011 conducted trials of such a wonderfully beautiful glide bomb, a very magnificent glider. Here we have a completely classical wing for all of these maneuvers, and the most important thing is that this glider had a super brain, and not just brain, it's super brain. Behind this transparent glass, we have first active millimeter wave radar head, then second optical sensor in visible and infrared with shapes recognition, and plus the ability to be guided to a laser spot if there is a laser designation on the target from a ground designator, or, for example, from a drone. The drone flies, illuminates the target with a laser, and this Raytheon thing flies to it. So, this thing is undoubtedly better than Boeing bomb. There is no arguing about it. And it's better. In the middle of 2010s, it was accepted into the service, and contract was signed with Raytheon for 17,000 of such bombs. 17,000 glide bombs. And here you see suspended under an F-15, the maximum ammunition load for F-15 is 28 bombs, and just one, not that much heavy fighter bomber F-15 is already capable of carrying 28 bombs and hitting 28 targets. And the Boeing, with its shenanigans, missed out on a contract worth at least $2.5 billion. So, but 3,000 GBU-39 bombs have already been made. They have become outdated because this thing is much better than them. And somehow there is still a desire to make more of them and to earn money. And at this moment, completely out of the blue, Swedish Saab appears, and this Swedish aviation giant Saab. And with the joint effort of Boeing and Saab, these guys remembered that there are 500,000 obsolete M26 rockets lying in the warehouses. Here it is in front of you, this M26 rocket. What it is? It is Katyusha, it is Grad, it is a rocket for a multiple rocket launcher system. It is American. It is analog of Soviet Uragan, or vice versa. Soviet one was 220 millimeter in diameter and had a starting weight of 280 kilograms. And this one is 227 millimeters and 306 kilograms. So very, very similar. And it was supposed to be launched from these very things, HIMARS, from M2070 or M142 HIMARS. And this is the launch unit, and rockets were constantly changing. This is the first generation of M26, and it was accepted in 1983, very long ago. Then it was modified in 1992, and it is now completely hopelessly outdated. It is absolutely unguided. It's Katyusha, Grad, it's just dumb weapon. And in Ukraine, we are now using M31 Gimlers. This third one from left to right. And that's what we are shooting now. And this unguided rocket no longer used because it is first dumb, and second, it has a cluster warhead, and there was a decision made to dispose of them, and in the warehouses there were about 500,000 of them. And then there is a completely natural and understandable logical thought: to detach the rocket motor part from the unguided warhead. So this warhead with the cluster bombs is just thrown away, disposed of, but this one is separated, and then you attach to them as a detachable guided gliding warhead this very gliding bomb GBU-39. Thus, we've got a hybrid. You can call it a glider with a rocket booster, or you can call it something else. Solid fuel, ballistic, unguided missile with a detachable, guided, gliding warhead. Call it what you like, but as a result, it turned out very, very nicely. What did we get as a result? Firstly, we got a completely natural and understandable increase in range. If initially this ballistic missile M26 unguided rocket delivered its warhead weighing 156 kilograms at the range of 40, 45 or 50 kilometers depending on the variant, then this thing is capable of delivering it 150 kilometers away. That is, we tripled the range. How? It's clear how. Because we have wings, and if for a ballistic missile the air is resistant, something that hinders it from flying, then for an object with wings, the air is something to lean on, and then to fly. So with the same dimension, launched literally from the same guiding container, everything remains the same, but as a result, the warhead flies 3 times further. We fly for 150 kilometers. In terms of weight, literally nothing has changed. In the original M26 missiles, there were 93 kilograms in the warhead, but here it's approximately the same, around the 90 kilograms. But that's not all. Just the beginning of a long list of successes, of new possibilities. Here is a wonderful picture illustrating a major, centuries-old problem for artillery called the reverse slope of a hill. So the enemy is on the other side of the hill, and they are smart enough, they might have dug a little step there, and they are sitting on this step, maybe with their headquarters or an ammunition depot. Now, how do you get there, even if you have 100 cannons? How do you hit them there? Simply firing a cannon with a regular ballistic trajectory won't hit that dug-in position on the reverse slope. No matter how you adjust the trajectory, you cannot hit them. If you could try to launch a rocket, preferably guided one, and launch it on a non-optimal trajectory, nearly vertically upward, so that when it falls almost vertically downwards in the last minutes, if it is guided and has some optical head, it can see this step, adjust its trajectory and hit it. Maybe it will work, but maybe not. More likely not. Now, our things with wings flying like a glider, like a plane, without an engine, has no problem. It calmly flies over that hill, calmly turns, takes aim, approaches, and hits the step right on target. For it, whether it is a direct slope or reverse slope, there is no difference. Furthermore, since it flies on its own with wings like an airplane, wherever it wants, like a glider, it can fly anywhere. So if we launch a missile, it flies where we launched it. That's where it goes. Well, let's say with modern HIMARS, there is a possibility to adjust the trajectory a little, to move a bit left or right, but just a little. But this little airplane, it can fly in all 360 degrees. Manufacturers, they love to proudly mention that they can hit 70 kilometers behind the launch point. That it is launched forward. Then at the highest point after the rocket engine is spent, it detaches the glider. The glider, it turns 180 degrees, flies back and hits something 70 kilometers past the launch point. Who needs this and why, I don't quite understand, but nevertheless such a capability exists. And in any case, much more serious is that the enemy has no idea where we are shooting, because at the moment of missile launch there is a thermal flash, many optical effects, dust clouds, and all of this can be seen from reconnaissance drones and so on. So you can roughly understand that a launch has happened. They can determine where it flew during the rocket stage. But where it will go afterwards, they don't know, because then it turns into a glider, and that glider can fly left, right in all 360 degrees. And the chance of detecting this glider with a radar detection system is very low. Its radar cross-section, the effective area for reflecting radio waves, is extremely small. It is 0.015 square meters, so 15,000 over square meter. It is like a kid's balloon, this balloon, in terms of geometry. Detecting it is very difficult, so radar detection is very difficult of this thing. What else do they have? It produces almost no sound. It's a glider, and it's a glider. It doesn't have engine when it glides after this one is spent. And there is something that is not clear if it is launched like this, or there is some fairing, that covering the bomb itself. Some sources say this and others that, but it might also be covered by a jettisoned fairing, and that when it flies together with the missile, as a part of the missile, hits up from the surroundings. The speed is high, it hits up, but only the outer shell, the fairing, heats up. Then it's jettisoned, leaving behind a completely cold glider. And then this glider quietly, calmly, as a glider should, flies at subsonic speed. Consequently, aerodynamic heating is negligible. It will even cool down further at higher altitudes. As a result, the chances of being detected by a thermal system also approach zero. Consequently, despite the fact that yes, the speed when approaching the target is much lower, there are no exact figures anywhere, but a glider is a glider, and it will be orders of magnitude slower than a missile. But since detection is extremely difficult, bordering on, let's say this word, impossible, then accordingly, if there is no detection, there is no heat, no destruction. So it turns out to be a quite inexpensive means of aerial attack. It's no longer just a missile, it's not an airplane, it's not a bomb, it is a glider, a flying apparatus, an airborne attack weapon with a long range of 150 kilometers, which is significant within the realm of tactical weapons, with a very high level of accuracy and very high invulnerability to enemy air defense system. That's very interesting thing. But in the end, of course, let's add a pinch of tar, dear audience. 150 kilometers. You can see here, the ranges. Here is the HIMARS range, this, lighter shade of red, and more dark red is, HIMARS range plus GLSDB range. And you can see that Kerch Bridge out of range. So from Novakakhovka to Kerch Bridge is 300 kilometers. And so I just would like to say that when it appears here in Ukraine, and there are some indications that it is already here, there is no reason to talk about any change at the operational level, and let alone at the strategic level. But as a means of combat in tactical realm, as a means of targeting enemy depots, command posts, and everything else, at this moment we have HIMARS missile, which flies about 70 to 80 kilometers. When this thing arrives, it's already 150 kilometers. This is twice as far, and consequently, it can become significantly worse for enemy. And on this positive note, let's conclude. Thank you for your attention, and Slava Ukraini!